Good evening. Welcome to tonight's Andrea Kaye Show. It is hump day. Andrea Kaye here, Dynamite in a dress, busting through the hype, the hyperbole, and the hypocrisy every night right here from 6 to 7 p.m. on FM 96.1 in North County and AM 1170. Over the internet at theanswersandiego.com, Facebook Live, and just everywhere. And however you are listening to me right now, I just thank you so much for sharing this time with me. We've got a great show for you guys tonight. I've got her back. It's been too long since my girl, Dr. Gina, has been on the show, and she has been so busy. You've seen her everywhere, and she will be here in about 10 minutes talking about her new book, Mad Politics. The left, in case you haven't, you have got to know how crazy it has gotten with the left out there. And the question now is, how much crazier is it going to get going into the midterms? And Dr. Gina will be here after the first break to talk about that and answer the question. Not only will Dr. Gina diagnose the crazy of the left, but she's going to prescribe the cure. So stay tuned for that. But throughout the entire hour, every day, is the man who keeps it going here on the Andrea Kaye Show. He manages to push all the buttons, even with his orange Cheez-It stained fingers. Y'all know I'm talking about DJ Carrot Sticks.
DJ Carrot Sticks.
I love this country.
And just to clarify, Cheez-Its do not stain your fingers.
How can they not stain your fingers? Because in case you didn't know, DJ Carrot Sticks, that ain't natural orange on those little squares of love.
They do not transfer to your fingers.
They know.
I'll eat a whole box and it'll show you my fingers just to sacrifice for this show. The name is science. I'll eat a whole box and show you my fingers.
Okay. I'm glad you brought up science, because there's been lots of talk about science today as we've got Florence and the Machine happening. Who knows who Florence and the Machine is? You recognize that?
The band.
The band, Florence and the Machine. I got to thinking about the Machine today. Although what it's not exactly music. It's not exactly a band. My reference to Florence and the Machine. No, my reference is Florence, as you know, is a hurricane that is barreling towards the East Coast. As of today, as of right now, the track continues to shift a little bit, but it has been downgraded officially from a 4 to a 3. That does not stop the left from hyperventilating over and hyping this hurricane. And as somebody who grew up in the South and has been spent most of my life hearing the warnings of hurricanes coming, there's a part of me that says you can't really overhype it, but you can. And you can particularly overhype it when natural disasters of any persuasion get politicized, when they're used to stoke fears and when they're used for power. And that's the Machine that I want to talk about tonight. Of course, first and foremost, we want to say to everybody out there that one of the things that I learned growing up in the history of Hurricane Camille, many of you, I don't know if any of you out there ever heard of that storm, but that's the one when I was growing up that we always heard about, the legendary Hurricane Camille that destroyed the Gulf Coast. Too many people decided to write it out. So I'm hoping that everybody, whether it's been downgraded or not, that they don't try to Hurricane Camille the situation. Don't try to write it out. Get out. There's still time to get out. I was laughing today over and posted a pic that someone from Lynn Patton, who is associated with President Trump, she tweeted out a pic today of a grocery store that had been cleaned out of everything but vegan food. So I had some laughs about that, but let me tell you, it's never a laughing matter. There's no reason to write it out. There is help out there for you to get out, and I hope that you do. Some friends of mine who are watching on Facebook Live are from North Carolina and South Carolina, and I'm asking, what are you telling me? Hi from North Carolina. Hopefully you're in an inland area and it's not coming to you. That being said, it's never too soon to talk about when the left is here's the Machine. The left politicizes everything. Rahm Emanuel said, let no catastrophe go to waste. And one of the ways that the left has politicized natural disasters and hurricanes is, of course, with the faux science, the climate change hoax. After Katrina, the lessons of Katrina was supposed to be, according to Al Gore, that Katrina was going to happen every hurricane season, like 5 times a year during hurricane season. Of course, that prediction ended up not being true. So that's one way in which the Machine uses natural disasters, and particularly hurricanes. The other way that the Machine, in this case, Florence and the Machine, uses natural disasters is related to another lesson that we should have learned from Katrina. And that is the lesson of individual responsibility. And people could say to me, well, how heartless of you, Andrea, to talk about individual responsibility. Well, I feel like I've got a right to say that because there is not one neighborhood, there is not one area that was destroyed by Katrina where I didn't have friends or family that lost everything. And after Katrina, when you saw images from the entire New Orleans area, St. Bernard Parish, Slidell, Bay St. Louis, Gulfport, and beyond, every area, I had family and friends who lost everything. And I said then, when President Bush was scapegoated and run through the ringer and blamed for Katrina, one of the things that I said, and what everybody was supposed to have learned from Katrina, is that the responsibility for you, your life, your property, your pets is an individual responsibility. Every one of these areas, first it starts with the fact that for many people, for most people, it is a choice to live in an area that has hurricanes as part of its history. And in New Orleans and growing up down in the South, we always knew we always said, if we ever get one come up the Wrigley's, we're dead. We ever get one over Category 3 we're dead. You know, when you're in these areas and when you move to these areas that this is the possibility. The friends and family of mine who lost everything, if they had insurance, they were able to rebuild. With the only role of the government, and I was accused of being callous back then, but it is not. The role of the way that it's being politicized already is about Trump didn't do enough for Puerto Rico. It is not the role of taxpayers in Idaho to rebuild North Carolina if somebody bought a home there or built a home there and didn't get insurance. And the left wants to push this notion that it is the government and it is the federal taxpayers and the nation, the American citizens' responsibility to rebuild these areas because by doing that and pushing that narrative, they get people to buy into the concept of government dependency. And we saw the citizens that were dependent on the government in New Orleans. They were the ones that ended up on a bridge outside the Superdome, starving and being attacked. The lessons should be individual responsibility and personal responsibility for your life and for your property. And it's the state and local government's responsibility for the state and local for the evacuation plans and those infrastructures. And we need to push back against this notion because it's about expanding the entitlement state. It's about expanding socialism in this country. And that's the machine. And they're working it all day, every day. And it's part of the crazy of the left. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk craziness on the part of the left and the cure for the crazy with the one and only Dr. Gina. She's got a great book out called Mad Politics, and you'll be mad if you don't stay tuned. Welcome back to the Andrea Kaye Show. Glad to have you all here with me tonight. 888-344-1170 if you would like to chime in. It has gotten crazy just when you think it couldn't get any crazier. I mean, the more Trump wins, the crazier and more insane the left gets. Just a couple examples of crazy. This morning, we found out some professor in Nevada shot himself in the toilet to protest Trump. I mean, how was that supposed to? Yeah, that really showed Trump, right? I mean, it's gotten so crazy on the left. Crazy is saying that President Trump is a greater threat to this country on September 11th than Islamic terrorists. That's how crazy the left is. But you know what? We can keep sane in this crazy world that we've got. And let me tell you, it's going to get even crazier as we go into the midterms, because with the economic success that President Trump has had, they are desperate. They are just mentally unhinged in a desperate way to try to stop the Trump train. And here to talk about how you can stay sane in this crazy world is the one and only Dr. Gina Loudon. She's got her new book out, Mad Politics. Hey, Dr. Gina, welcome back to the Andrea Kaye Show.
Hey, what a huge honor to be on with you tonight. Thanks for having me.
Oh, thanks for being here. And, you know, those I just gave just a couple of little examples of crazy. We could go on and on and on. Crazy to me is, I'm not sure how much more crazy it gets than a main TV host, someone who supposedly is a Republican, who says that our president, free and fairly elected president, Gina, is a greater threat to this country than radical Islam. But we also have crazy in the form of women dressing up in costumes at a Kavanaugh hearing like they were in The Handmaid's Tale, and the display. Kamala Harris, a sitting senator, fraudulently manipulating audio recordings of Kavanaugh to stop him. Girl, can it actually get any crazier than it already has?
Well, I think you made a great prediction, and I need one of your crystal balls there, because I think actually it will get crazier. The more they realize that this president, Andrea, is going to continue to dismantle their cushy, comfy lifestyles that they've become accustomed to, where they live off the backs of the voters and the taxpayers, this very powerful, very profitable lifestyle, the more they're going to get desperate to clutch on to what they see as rightfully theirs. And it's a sickening societal reality. If you study human behavior for 5 minutes, you figure out that there are people out there who love freedom. They have no desire to control anyone. They have no desire to be controlled. That's you and me, and that's probably 99% of your audience. Mm-hmm. Then there are those, and I hate to say it, a great population of those happen to reside in the great state of California, who really like the idea of controlling other people and really don't, some of them don't mind being controlled. And that's where we grapple with it. You know, folks like you and I, we look at that and we think, what in the world? Why would anyone want to control other people or be controlled? It doesn't make sense to us, but that's because we're made of just a different brain fiber. And that's the reality we're dealing with. That's what we're seeing today.
One of the things that we're seeing is a continued narrative that we saw back during the primaries, as well as the general election, which is now being proffered with supposedly this great investigative journalist, Bob Woodward, who's no better than Omarosa. I mean, his book is no better than her book, Unhinged. And it's all about trying to continue to push this narrative that President Trump is the one who's crazy, that he's the one who's insane. We heard that all during the election, and we're continuing to hear that. But you actually said something on Hannity's show that made people go bananas. You said that your book has the science to prove the fact that President Trump is the most sound-minded. Did I hear you right? That he's the most sound-minded president we've had?
Well, Andrea, tell me this. How many people do you know, make it your hairdresser, make it your, cleaning lady, I don't care who it is, make it your whoever manages the station that you work on. If they were fired at on a consistent basis, and their family was attacked every day. They received countless death threats every day. They were involved in endless litigation every single day. Their children's lives were threatened. Their grandchildren's lives were threatened. Also, they could function in a job they're not even taking a salary for. Tell me how long they'd keep working.
I wouldn't at all.
You look at, we're right, who would? And the point of the matter is, if you look at what the president has done as president, under all of that kind of pressure, and you realize that he had one major accomplishment every 36 hours by the calculations that I saw regarding his first year as president, who could function? And these weren't just attacks from his enemies, let's remember. These were attacks from the full media, right? These were attacks from his own party. And in some cases, these were great betrayals of longtime friends looking to profit off of his willingness to spend his golden years sacrificing for this country. So you look at all that and you think, who would even be sane, let alone functional, let alone productive? And he has been all of the above. And I would submit to you, that takes a great level of sanity that I'm not sure anybody who's ever occupied the White House has tamed.
No, in fact, there has never been a president in modern times. They keep trying, the left wants to tell us that Obama suffered the same types of slings and arrows of criticism. Absolutely not. I mean, the most challenging question the dude ever got in an interview was, what's your favorite, combination plate at a Mexican restaurant? It was ridiculous. He spent his time, his media interviews was a YouTube star whose claim to fame was taking a bath in a tub of Cheerios. This is a man, President Trump is a man, and George W. Bush, for all the Bush hatred that was out there, he did not suffer anything like this. This is a man, I'm so glad you talked about his accomplishments every 36 hours, not just under the pressure, under the weight of the constant attacks from the media, as well as the fact that he was an outsider, Gina. You know him personally. You know he did not have a political machine behind him to take over an administration. He had to come in from the outside, knowing he was hated, knowing he faced two opposition parties, having no idea, knowing he was surrounded by a bunch of Judases and having no idea exactly who it was. And then on top of it, he faces a weaponized FBI and DOJ and a deep state that has sought from day one to use the weight of the full force of the government to unseat him as a free and fairly elected president, and then hopefully try to, if not impeach him, to put him in jail. And on the no legal basis whatsoever. Anybody else, Gina, would probably be in a corner rocking back and forth, sucking on his hair.
Pretty sane dude. pretty sane dude. I can't really say it better than you, Andrea, and this is the problem I always had when I had you on my show, is that you say things in such an amazingly concise and poignant way, and that's exactly what you just did, and you're exactly right. There's never been a situation like this. You can't compare it to anything that any other president has endured or his family. And you're right, I have gotten to know them, and this is why I just want to ask people to look logically for a moment at the fact that here you have Woodward, a man who's been, by the way, discredited by every single president in our lifetime. He's been called a liar by Reagan. He's been completely rejected and called a farce by the Clinton administration, the Obamas, the Bushes, the list goes on and on. But suddenly now he has credibility, even though he has zero background in human behavior of any kind, and even though he has zero knowledge of this president or anyone in his family. I asked Laura Trump on her show the other day, had the honor of doing her first show in her new studio in New York in Trump Tower. And she asked me, I asked her straight up, I said, have you ever met Mr. Woodward? No, she doesn't even know him. And yet he feels some sort of authority to write about her and her family and her father-in-law and to make mental evaluations of them. And so I would submit to you, being exactly on the opposite side of that, knowing the president as I have come to know him very well since the election, and also having a background in human behavior, and being on his side, if I were to have written the book that Woodward wrote and to have made these disgusting accusations that he's made, I would have already made $1 million off of my book.
Yeah.
That was never my purpose. My purpose was to say to the American people, hey, you're the sane ones, and this president is very sane. Please don't worry. He thrives on this, by the way. Mm-hmm. And to explain why, to go into a little bit of his family of origin, his birth order, his type, his personality type, where he falls in Maslowian hierarchy of needs, and some of the Psych 101 stuff. I try not to get too psycho badly, because who the heck wants to read all of that? But just to talk about mostly reason and common sense, and to let people know they're not only not alone, they're living in the best moments of history. America is in the best, most prosperous, happiest, safest time of the entire history of the world. Wow. And I believe that those who worked hard like you, Andrea, to attain this deserve to enjoy it a little bit. So I wanted to set minds at ease.
Well, I am so happy that you wrote this book, and the timing absolutely is perfect, because it's the perfect counter to Bob Woodward and to Omarosa, who talk about a Judas and a backstabber. And finally, there was some audio that was released yesterday that was absolutely a whole bunch of nothing. But I'm wondering, when I hear things like some actress supposedly out of New York City saying, "Where's John Wilkes Booth when you need him?" I wonder when are we going to? We've already had a bunch of Republicans mowed down or shot at, which resulted in Steve Scalise being severely injured. Are you concerned really that the more success Trump has and the crazier they get, are we going to reach some kind of really dangerous point?
Yeah, and we have to add to that Rand Paul and that assault.
Yes.
There are countless unreported assaults, including one in my family that I haven't made yet because it involves my children.
Oh.
There are, you look at this young man that I met at a Turning Point event. I spoke with him, who had the water, you remember, thrown in his face by a full-grown adult because the boy was sitting in a Whataburger having a hamburger with his friend, wearing a MAGA hat. You look at the guy that shot himself in the arm. You look at the threat on Trump International Hotel, where I'm getting ready to have my book party in a couple of weeks, and some guy said last night he was going to shoot the whole thing up. I mean, the list goes on. And the shooting at the Fox studio, was it last week, I believe? The list goes on and on. There are so many now that we start to forget. The RNC headquarters, just 2 days ago, I think, literally we're losing track. Where is Maxine Waters? Where is Nancy Pelosi? Where are the rest of the Democrats who say they want the vote of the American people, and yet they have not only been complicit in calling for violence, Andrea, they have been completely crickets quiet as the violence has been carried out until the point where it escalates into something horrendous. And they did this by dehumanizing us. And I'm sure your audience is divided on the issue of pro-life, but just for a moment, isn't it so much easier to believe that to destroy a baby it's not really a baby, it's a fetus. I want to explain to your listeners that's exactly what they're doing to us right now. They are dehumanizing anyone who disagrees with them, anyone who believes that Trump is not a horrible person is not a human to them. They're not using the word fetus, but maggots. They call us maggots, M-A-G-A-T-S. You see that all over social media right now. Plurals, irredeemables. What does that mean? There's no way to ever make us better. The list goes on and on. They are dehumanizing us. We are really at a crux in our political culture, and they have got to be called out at every single time. And it's up to us to communicate with the rational liberals that we know. My dad's one of them. My dad's not going to ever hurt anybody, but he disagrees with me. Andrea, I know you have them on your show. I've always had them on my shows. I still have them on my show on Newsmax TV all the time. Logical, rational Democrats you can talk to. It's up to us to continue to engage them, to continue to love on them, to not be nasty to them simply because we disagree on one or two issues. And I think it's really important to kind of call out those leaders in the Democrat Party who are not calling down these people advocating violence.
Yeah, and they're not only not calling it down, but when they're actually calling for it. They've paid for protesters to come and be disruptive and verbally abuse a man, Justice Kavanaugh, what's his biggest crime? I mean, this is a man who feeds the homeless. This is a man who teaches girls basketball. But because he's not a far left Ruth Bader Ginsburg in a suit, they hate him, and they're going to. I mean, his daughters had to be ushered out through security. We had Maxine Waters in the street calling for mobs to assault. I still shudder when I think about Sarah Sanders and her family being verbally abused and accosted at the Wren Head. I mean, that's what the left is doing in this country. And, but I'm grateful to you that you wrote the book, because it is a wave. It's like a salve for us as conservatives. We're not crazy. They want to tell us that we're the crazy ones when the left really is. And, you as somebody who knows President Trump are the perfect person to say, let me tell you who he really is. He's crazy like a fox. He's sane, he's calm, he's cool, he's not fearful right now. He's got this, and we can trust in him. The book is Mad Politics, written by the one and only Dr. Gina Loudon. Gina, girl, from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for being here. Always an honor to have you on my show.
Thank you so much, Andrea, for having me. I want to make sure to tell your listeners the book is up right now on Amazon. It's actually on sale today for the first week sort of entree price, so that's kind of cool. And I would love the reviews, because there is an orchestrated effort on Twitter. Imagine that, to take my review stars down. So I would love everyone to go and review it if they've read it and they'd like to do so on Amazon. And Andrea, thank you so much. You are a star, patriot, and one of my dearest friends. And it's such an honor to be on your show with your audience tonight. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, girl. Love you. Take good care.
Love you too. Thank you.
Bye, honey. All right. Now stay tuned. We got more Andrea Kaye Show coming up. 888-344-1170. If you'd like to call in the show, tell me what's on your mind. We got a little follow-up. We got a clap back. We got a clapback story to tell y'all. We got some other follow-up. We got some unfinished business here. There's a story out of San Diego where we had somebody here to talk about last week that involves gun control. We got to give you an update on that. More Andrea Kaye Show coming up, so don't go anywhere. Welcome back to tonight's Andrea Kaye Show. This is kind of like going to be, I think, kind of like a little bit of a round robin. I guess we'll call it maybe the Bit-O News. The little Bit-O News, because I got a few little Bit-O news stories. You actually had one you wanted something you wanted to mention, huh, DJ Carrot Sticks?
Yes, this is super exciting. Just hot off the press. Vicky Barbalak, who we had on, a couple shows ago, she's made it to the finale on America's Got Talent. She's one of 5 finalists.
What? If you guys, remember, we had her on the show. Super funny. I think the clip that we had from her, maybe on the next break you can find a clip. She's a local from San Diego. She is hilarious. This is a woman who started stand-up later on in her life. I think the clip you pulled from her said something like when she takes her bra off that her bazooms hit the floor like mini blinds. It still cracks me up. She's so funny. So you know what? Please, 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 if we've got a local gal who's super funny, been on the Andrea Kaye Show, she's on America's Got Talent, y'all go vote for her. Let's help her out, right?
Well, she got good karma from being on the show. I don't think they can vote anymore now. The voting's over. But she made
it's up to the.
finals.
Oh, I see. That's right. Because America's Got Talent, they choose from here on out.
Yes.
It's not about the. It's
But
not
she's
about the.
got
vote.
a good chance. I mean, I think there's over 30 acts to begin with, and she whittled all the way down.
That's
her
amazing.
And 4 other people. So go,
That's
Vicky.
amazing. Well, let's talk as part of our round robin. Let's get into the entertainment news. The people voted when it came to Norm Macdonald. I guess his late night show got canceled. So he was voted off the island. He was voted off the late night island by American viewers. What's that?
I didn't even know Norm Macdonald had a show.
I didn't know either. Isn't he formerly of SNL fame?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's another has-been comic, kind of like Jim Carrey. Remember how I think it was Monday night I talked about Jim Carrey and about how Jim Carrey, I mean, I don't even remember the last movie this man made, but for some reason he gets invited on Bill Maher's show. And when was the last time anybody paid attention to that fool? So anyway, Jim Carrey, this is in our clapback follow-up segment. Jim Carrey says that, just say yes, America, to socialism. The dude who literally pretended like he was talking with his hiney cheeks at the Academy Awards, thinks he's going to lecture us on what economic system we should have. Well, enter Hercules. Yes, the amazing Kevin Sorbo. Y'all know who I'm talking about. Well, he had quite the response for Jim Carrey, and I love it. We need to support conservatives in media. Kevin Sorbo, was also in, I think, Hannity's movie, Let There Be Light. And he called out Jim Carrey. He said, hey, Jim Carrey, for socialism didn't create Hollywood, capitalism did. And he went on to say, for every American moving to Canada, 20 Canadians moved to America. Why would that be? Let's ponder. So, hat tip, good clap back from Kevin Sorbo. Because, see, he clapped back in a way that was still kind of nice. I'm not as good with the clap back, because when I clap back, I usually, leave a bloody corpse. I haven't mastered the congenial clap back. But I guess that's why they call me Dynamite in a dress, right? Another little entertainment news, just to piggyback on Dr. Gina, when she was talking about pro-life. And not all of the listeners to my show are pro-life, but most of you are, many of you are. And we all know the horrific story of Kermit Gosnell, the butcher who murdered hundreds of babies who survived late-term abortion. And John Voight and Dean Cain and others worked to try to tell that movie, and their GoFundMe, their crowdfunding site got taken down because the party of science does not want anybody to understand the science involved with abortion. Late-term abortions is killing children, and they also don't want the American people to understand, as a part of the story, the American women's lives that were lost at the hands of this monster. The movie is coming out in October. We actually have an event here in San Diego that if you're local or in Southern California, you're going to want to come to this event. Mike Gallagher, you all know and love Mike Gallagher. He's going to be here. The event is Thursday, September 27th. It's just a couple of weeks from now. There's a meet and greet with Mike Gallagher from 5:30 to 6:30. The movie this is a free screening of the movie Gosnell, The Trial of America's Biggest Serial Killer. The tickets are free. It is the September 27th. It's at the Parkway Plaza. Go to it. The tickets are first come, first serve. Go to theanswersandiego.com. After the movie, there's going to be a Q&A with the screenwriter, Philem McAleer, and I will be there to host and help MC the Q&A at the end of the movie. So definitely hope you guys can attend that. Everybody's going to want to see that. The left loves to pretend that they care about women and children, but they really don't. Here's another little bit of news story to share with you guys. America was riveted when Elizabeth Smart went missing. And I don't remember exactly what year it was, but she ended up here. She was kidnapped out of her home in Salt Lake City. She was missing for 9 months. It was 9 months of bad times on the part of the family. She ended up actually brought out here by, I can't remember the man who kidnapped her, but his female partner was Wanda Barzee. They actually brought Elizabeth Smart here to San Diego and were here for a while before they ended up back in Utah before she was finally recovered and reunited with her family. The state of Utah has decided to release Wanda Barzee, a woman who helped kidnap a 14-year-old girl who was held prisoner and repeatedly raped by a crazy man. We talked to Dr. Gina about the craziness going on in this country. Is there anything crazier? She was set to be released. She didn't get life without parole, but she was supposed to be in there until 2024. But no, they decided to recalculate her time and to cut her sentencing down and release her 6 years early after giving her credit for time served. That's absolutely astounding to me that monster, first of all, she should have gotten more time than she did, because she helped the kidnapping. She should be in jail absolutely for life. There should be life without parole. But to think that the state of Utah is putting that woman back out on the street next week, I believe it is absolutely unconscionable.
They interviewed the head of the correctional facilities or whatnot there, and he was saying that he didn't say it was a mistake, but he said that originally they thought that they weren't going to run consecutive. Or currently or whatever. They thought they were going to be one after the other, and that they said, well, there's nothing else we can do. It's like, well, shouldn't you make sure that that's what is going on?
Yeah.
But I guess in her plea bargain or deal or something, it was that they ran together, the state and the federal sentence.
Well, if the issue here is that it goes back to the original sentencing that was too light, it's still a shame. It is a blight on the state of Utah that this woman is going out on the street for whatever it is. Where is the left? I'm not hearing any outcry on the part of anybody for this young girl or for other young girls. What, does anybody think this woman's been rehabilitated, that she's not now going to be involved in something like this going forward? There's just the left loves to yammer about women's rights and rights and rights for minorities, which this involved a female and involved a child who was both of which are minorities. It's ridiculous in this country. Shifting gears to another follow-up story here in San Diego. We had, I think it was last week, we had Michael Schwartz here from the San Diego County Gun Owners Association concerned with because his organization is always concerned, as every American should be, with the encroachment, the efforts on the part of the left. They are constantly working all day, every day to try to get at all of our rights, one of which is our Second Amendment rights. They know that if they can get our guns away from us, whether it's through the ammunition, taking the ammunition away, through registries, whatever it is, they're going to be doing it. After an Ice Cube concert at the Del Mar Fair, went bad with one of his, somebody showing up for the Ice Cube concert, and he didn't get a ticket, so he decided to shoot. That provided the excuse for the people that run the Del Mar, the 22nd District Agricultural Association Board of Directors, 9 members. They oversee all activities at the fairgrounds. They decided to put it to a vote as to whether or not they're going to continue gun shows. There was no connection between the gun shows that happened at Del Mar and a dude who decided to shoot a gun because he couldn't get into the Ice Cube concert. No connection whatsoever. There was as much connection between the gun show and that shooting as there was the Del Mar Home and Garden Show that happens every year. And in fact, I think a kid was arrested in Chicago today, might have been yesterday, because he murdered a girl in class with a knife. And you know what? There's knives that get sold at the Del Mar Home and Garden Show. I know, I've been there and seen the how they do the demonstrations. So they put it to a vote, and they voted 8-1 to halt the shows after the last one is scheduled for December 2018. No new shows would be scheduled until the board of directors and come up with a new set of policies that include an enhanced security and safety plan for the fairgrounds, determining the age appropriateness of gun shows, rules and policies that would let the board audit and monitor gun shows, consideration of a ban on the possession of guns and ammunition at the fairgrounds. None of this has anything to do with anything that happened with Ice Cube. This is all a way to try to see what they can do to try to get at our guns. Now, if they want to come up with a ban, there should be, maybe if they want to come up with a ban that you can't, bring a gun to an Ice Cube show, I wouldn't necessarily, although, have we not learned our lesson with gun-free zones? What happens? Big fat, target on the backs of everybody with gun-free zones. So this is more insanity going on here in the left. Speaking of insanity, I think it was President Obama. Yeah, Yeah, it was. Who decided that when it came to illegal aliens, that when they stole identities, identity theft is one of the most egregious crimes that is committed in this country. Because let me tell you, if you've had your identity stolen, it can take years, the damage that it does and what it costs you financially in order to try to repair your identity. It's insane. But President Obama knew how much of that was happening with illegal aliens. They have, according to Social Security numbers, they've stolen 39 million. And when he was president, he rolled back, he lessened the level of crime. I think he downgraded the level of crime that it is. In other words, just like what they're doing at a lot of cities around the country, to where if DJ Carrot Sticks and I go out and, drink and drive and we kill somebody, we're going to have the book thrown at us. But if it's an illegal, it gets pleaded down to something lesser in order to avoid them being deported. That's what Obama did when it came to identity theft from illegal aliens. 39 million identities have been stolen by illegal aliens. And yet they still want to tell us that the left wants to tell us that we need to abolish ICE, we need open borders, sanctuary cities, and sanctuary states. This is just another example of liberal crazy. We're going to take a break, but have no fear, because the AK Show will be right back here to round it out, to end the show on Wednesday, this hump day. We're almost over to hump on a Wednesday show. More Andrea Kaye Show coming up. Welcome back to tonight's Andrea Kaye Show. We are over to hump, rolling into the last segment of tonight's Andrea Kaye Show. Breaking news today happened from more news out of the Party of Women and how much they mistreat women. We've had three bigs now from CBS News that have finally been taken down, including, I think, the head of CBS TV, maybe. I can't, the head of 60 Minutes was this guy Frager. Moonves was the head of CBS, maybe just the TV division. I don't know. And then, of course, we also know that Charlie Rose was taken out. Who's going to now believe in the investigative journalism of CBS 60 Minutes? The famed investigative journalism outfit that couldn't even investigate its own, even though there were supposedly emails and text messages of threats. Be careful. People have lost jobs trying to harm me. I mean, if these people couldn't investigate and figure out what was happening under their own nose, why in the world would anybody watch another 60 Minutes investigative report? And this past weekend, I told you guys that I was at IVAT. I was at this conference and I was on a panel of talking about the media and its role in terms of fake news and in terms of how it plays out in terms of violence and stories of women. And one of the things that I said, I come from corporate America, and corporate America, the left loves to demonize corporate America and corporations. Like companies like I used to work for, like Pitney Bowes, and I worked for Xerox and other corporations, and even some smaller ones. Oh, the big, bad, evil corporations. I said, wait a second. I said, going back to when I first got out of college, every corporation, every company I ever worked for, whether they had 1,000 employees or 100,000 employees, all back in the 90s were buttoned up. They had their act together in terms of rules of the road and rules when it came to sexual harassment. And there were repercussions. There were proper means of investigations, and there were repercussions against those that didn't follow it. And people lost their jobs. It's the media, the mainstream media run by the liberals and Hollywood that don't have their act together when it comes to taking care of women. And when it comes to fake news, CBS, nobody should watch another report from CBS or NBC, because NBC allowed that Matt Lauer to be skeezing up on everybody who came into his office. We've yet to hear the full outcome of ABC News and what went on over there. But the left, when there were allegations that came about, and one of the women who was involved in taking down Bill O'Reilly was on this panel, Fox News, that only this kind of sexual harassment only happens at Fox News. Well, where are they now? Where are they now talking about this? This is outrageous. Absolutely outrageous. I've yet to see, we know that Harvey Weinstein is going to face justice, and he was covered up. I want to know how many people. I want to know what Leslie Stahl knew when she was over there at 60 Minutes. And what about that one woman, Laura Hogan, was it, who started working at 60 Minutes after she was gang assaulted over in the square over in Egypt? Yeah, I want to hear what went on with her. I want some more details about this. I want some more transparency. Speaking of transparency, we're on a watch waiting to see if President Trump is going to declassify documents. The American people have a right to know every last dirty little detail involved in the dirty, deep state that is decided, clearly decided. We get in these drips and drabs out in these tweets, but we already know. We already know that there was a bias. We need to know how deep it went. We need to know the extent of it. And we have a right to know as Americans. I believe that he will declassify them. Supposedly the word is that his attorneys are looking at it because he's got to be careful. He's got to be careful that he's not doing something that it could blow back on him, which is wise on his part to do that. I've been impatient myself and said, why, he needs to declassify. What's he waiting on? Well, he doesn't have an AG that's got his back. See, if he was Obama with Holder or Loretta Lynch in there as an AG, he'd be able to do whatever he wanted to do, knowing he had not the head of the Department of Justice and all the underlings having his back. But what President Trump knows is that he's got a bunch of Judases around him. So he's got to be extra careful, not just to follow the law, but be wary of those that want to manufacture evidence that they can use to take him down. In about a minute or so we have left, got a great piece of news to share with you guys. Y'all around the country love to bust us here in California that we don't have our act together. Things are horrible here. Well, you know what? Things may be turning around. Recent polling shows that John Cox, Republican, who's running for governor up against Gavin Newsom, is within 5 points. 5 points. DJ Carrot 6, don't be like shrugging and eye rolling.
Just don't know who's John Cox. I don't hear the guy. I never see him.
Well,
Who's
you know,
that?
you know what? Maybe the strategy is to just let Gavin Newsom go around there acting as though things are great while, the San Francisco is getting 65,000 calls a day over poop in the street. And we've got senior citizens here in San Diego and all over the state saying they can't take a walk with their little dog without stepping over hypodermic needles. A friend of mine came out of a Starbucks the other day and two dudes were shooting up literally right outside the door. So, as he's been trotting all around in the middle of all that, touting, free health care for illegals, maybe John Cox is coming out at the right time. So
I would just like to see him more in the media.
I hear you. Well, speaking of more in the media, I'm going to be right back here tomorrow night, 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. We're going to have Gerard Lamero, fan favorite's going to be here. My buddy Bob Walters going to be continuing to put a little sunlight on what's happening in our schools. Have a great night, everybody. Love you all.